Freedom is only one generation away from extinction. All you young people that are watching this right now, you don't want anything from the government. The only thing you want from the government is for them to stay out of your business. That's it. As less government as absolutely possible. If you think the government is ever going to take care of you and make all your hopes and dreams come true, you are out of your mind. It's not how it works.
Man, one of my favorite movies is The Great Debaters. Have you seen that scene where Denzel walk up and say, "I'm here to help you reclaim your mind, because obviously you have lost it"? What's going on, my people? This is Tariq Uninterrupted. Welcome to the first series of this series, right? Where we're going to get into the high consciousness of power talk and high-level conversations around mental, business, and development. I'm your host, Dr. Black Wealth, and this is a solo episode, Tariq Uninterrupted. Stay tuned. Listen, we're just going to get right into it. I ain't even going to play with y'all, right? So, you know, a lot of things you guys see on our podcast, for sure, we're talking all things biz on Minding Your Biz, which that's what we keep our content around, right? So kind of, you know, let us know what you like. Please hit that like, share, subscribe, all those buttons, hit that bell. Make sure you tapped in and tuned in. I'm doing a series called Tariq Uninterrupted. No pun intended, but have me uninterrupted. Right, nice, cool setting. But I want to get into some. A lot of times, I feel like we stay a little bit surface on things, and so I want to kind of go deep. You know, not kinda. I do want to do that, and that's where we're gonna go. And I'm gonna start off with. I think we just lost our ability, or we lost the vision of freedom along our journey to get to freedom. Right. And so when you think about that, I think about the times of, you know, you guys watch the show for sure. You know, I always go back to history because it's so relevant to today's time. Right. But I ain't going to go back that far. I'm just going to go back to the 60s. Right. In the time frame of the civil rights, before the civil rights, in the era of the high points of the nation, the high points of the South with Dr. Martin Luther King, right? And when we lost key leaders in our community on our journey to freedom, we lost the vision and the fight for freedom for what we mistake as free, right? So hear me out. We got ability to approve laws. We got the ability to vote. Women have rights. Black people have rights. All type of anybody who's not white have certain rights that they are afforded to. The Housing Act, all these acts were put into law via paper, via the Constitution, right? It's not the Constitution, it's just paper, right? Via the Constitution, right? But you have to ask yourself, did you really get what they said you got, or are we 3/5 still of a man? Right. And so when I look at that, I look at what Malcolm died for, even what Martin Luther King died on. Right. Because he started with the promise of the dream of I have a dream and the freedom of I had a dream. But he ended on I've seen the mountaintop, and felt like he led his people into a burning house, because even though we were free on paper, we never had the economics to be free. Right. Physically or spiritually. And so that's kind of where I stand on, right? And so when you look at that, you look at the downfall of not when he passed, but you look at all of the organizations that stood on these principles that are now in existence, who are not following the foundations of which they were founded on. What organization am I talking about? You pick one. The sororities, the fraternities, Masonry, specifically for Black Freemasonry, the Civil Rights Movement, in a sense, right? And so all these organizations was founded and built on the principles of us becoming more free and consciously aware of where we are. We talking about a time period where you could not, before the 60s, read or write. But we talking about a people who had the ability to be self-taught or taught to be able to read and write, and you have more access than you did years ago, except for we still have less access than we did years ago today. Interesting. Right. And so when I think about this, a lot of times I used to cringe on the fact of how mindset used to be so disturbing to me when I used to hear coaches, consultants, creators, people who are trying to sell, give, motivate, but they speak about the mindset. But then I realized how important the mind really is. And so we haven't really dived into the powers of the mind and the ability for you to free yourself, right? And so in this series, I'm not talking about, we're going to stay away from the labels of whether you're a Democrat or Republican, white or black, poor or we're going to talk about the mental capacity of the people to be able to do the things that they want and need to do. There was a time period, right? If we talk about black people specifically, there was a time period where, yes, we had 400 years of slavery. But what about the time before that? Our era don't just start or end with slavery. And in today's time frame, slavery is not your fight. Right? Slavery is not your fight. There are some of you who grandparents might have worked for white people, but who wasn't slaves. There are some of you who great-grandparents were slaves, right? I know in my lineage, my grandmother was not a slave, right? But I know her mother worked for white people. And so that's not our burden to bear, but it's a history and time that we must seize to be able to take advantage of what's happening today. So I thought about a title for this episode, but I'm really unsure. But the series is Tariq Uninterrupted. But I must take a page from my brothers and sisters in the nation, from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Minister Louis Farrakhan on the time and what must be done today. And that's where we at, right? And so when you think about the mental capacity of it, right? So the Latin word of men, right? So we talking men, we talking one man, right? Meaning plural, but the Latin root word of men means mind. Right? The Latin word of men means mind. So when we think about that, it's imperative that we think about our words. So I'm going to take my time today because I want to make sure that what I say, I'm speaking correctly, truthfully, right? Without opinion. Well, I have some opinion. However, truthfully as possible. My mission, you might ask, what is your purpose of doing this? My mission is to not sway you left or right, but to empower you with the ability to seek truth, speak on truth, and make decisions off truthful things, period. Right? So let's make this whole. Whether you vote Democrat or Republican don't really matter to me, but what matters to me is you making a conscious decision to vote either way with being able to make your vote off facts and truth and not off being led astray. And that's where we are at today. Right? So when we think about men, we think about the Latin root word of men means mind, right? So to mind, that's the mind in our brains, right? And so the thing about it is, right, the thing I learned, right, from the studies, the teachings, these I have to credit to the teachings of the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, all the way to the Master Fard Muhammad. If you study the teachings, I encourage you to do it, right? But we have to start somewhere that gives us an awakening period to some truth that leads us down a path to where we can make conscious decisions consciously and subconsciously. I'll break those things down, right? And so we're talking about mind development here. For this first part of this, it's imperative that we get mind developed, right? So when we think about something that develops, it starts at a stage, and then we're trying to develop it to another stage. So we start at A to get to B, right? And so in order to do that, the steps between A and B is where the development works. And that's where we're losing our power as a people, right? And so when you think about it, back in the day, the minister Nur Muhammad said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we have 14 billion brain cells in our mind. And between the space and times in our minds about how thought travels, it travels 24 billion miles per second. And I thought that was very interesting for a thought to be generated and travel 24 billion miles per second, right? But then if you look at the actual facts, we learn some other facts that the Earth travels 1,307 of 1/3 of a mile per hour. Sound travels at 1,120 feet per second. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second, but your thoughts move at 24 billion miles per second. So thought is more important and travels faster than Earth move, light, and sound. Think about that. In fact, in the Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. But you have to think about, in order for you to create words, you had to first then think. Right? Because you can speak without thinking, but you can never think without speaking, communicating words. It's important. It's important. Why? Because it is. When you look at the teachings, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that he said that God created himself out of triple darkness. This thing took 66 trillion years to come to fruition, which means it started with a mind concept for you to be created out of triple darkness to form a godlike presence to create himself. Then he said he studied himself, and found within himself a second self, which created a woman. But think about it. When you read the Bible, it says that we are all creators. So if God was the ultimate creator and it started with the thought of mind, why do we waste so much time not developing our minds? All right. Let me. I don't want to put too much on you. I know this is my first series on it, right? Let me reel this thing in. But when we start with school, think about this. Here's the interesting thing. When God decided to create man, he created Adam, if you read the book of Genesis, the first chapter, inside of a garden and gave him everything he needed inside that garden. The garden has some significance, right? And so when we learn the roots of words, right? So as children, and you have to think about this, as kids, the first grade or school level we see after preschool is kindergarten, right? The German translation of kindergarten is a kind of a garden. So much, in fact, that these symbolisms are represented in such a way that when we bring the apple is a symbolism for education. So we send out an apple to the teacher as a symbolism for her to, or him or her, to have our minds in their hands and control. That's the development of us, right? And so think about that, the kind of a garden, kindergarten, the garden. When you look at the reference of a garden, what happens? What takes place? First of all, when we plant plants and or trees, a tree can only bear one kind of a thing. You will never see an apple and a peach tree mixed, ever. You will only see an apple tree, a peach tree, a plum tree, etc. Right? And in the side of a garden, I don't garden too much, right? But we got a couple plants, you know what I mean? I might have a green thumb somewhere. I think it's inevitably in us. But when you think about the garden, you think about the patience of, the nurturing of, the prevention of what we are developing. It takes time for trees to grow. It takes time for us to bear those fruit. And so we have to take that time. Why am I going into the mindset of what it is? Because most of us are really kind of screwed financially. But what you're not understanding is the material world is a manifestation of the spiritual world you live in. The perceptions of how you see things become a reality in the physical. So if you live in poor chaos, spiritually, you're discombobulated. You're not understanding where you are spiritually, and that's manifesting into your material worlds. So you have a view on the world that's not proper, truth, or correct. So you see things through the lens of what your mind can conceive, except for the fact that you haven't taken the time to develop a mind that can conceive properly. This thing heavy. This thing heavy. This thing heavy. So what I would suggest to you is, if we are living in a poor-like condition, and poor could be relative to your definition. It doesn't have to be a monetary manifestation of the word. It doesn't have to be how much money we physically have. It could just be poor conditions of life. But if you are living in poor conditions, I would submit to you that spiritually you have no direction. You haven't found truth and favor on true principles and put them to work. And that's where we are as a people. I told y'all this was Tariq Uninterrupted. Woo-wee. Woo-wee. You see the all black? I'm in my Nino Brown, baby. Sit your thought. Now, just let me... Right? And so it's imperative for us to develop ourselves mentally, because if you don't, you will allow things to enter and exit that you are not in control of. And the number one thing about anything in this world is the ability to control. That's why government works the way it works. That's even why religion works the way it works, because it's ability to control. Right? The Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan said at the root word of scripture is the word script. So when you think about script, what do you think about? I think about movies. I think about people who screenwrite a script, and I get to act out which role and character I decide to play and audition for that role. So when you think about biblical scriptures, there's many different characters and peoples and roles that you can take a position on. But the problem is we look at Bible as something from yesterday and not look at Bible as how it is applicable to today, our present time frame, to help us form, shape our character, to help us form, shape our decisions, to help us transform our future. I told you we lost the vision of what freedom is and what it looks like. The people who were our righteous leaders stood for individuals who were speaking truth to power, and we liked that. But at the moment of discomfort, at the moment of despair, at the moment where hope is lost, we lose ourselves as a people. Why? Because we typically emotionally think, and so we tied ourselves to the individual and never look at the message. We so concerned with the messenger instead of dissecting the message that the messenger is bringing. What do I mean? It was a lot of people who fell when Malcolm was killed. It was a lot of people who fell when Martin Luther King was killed. But ask yourself, is the person more important than the message that was being brought through those individuals that we are not fulfilling in today's time frame? How do we know that? Well, you may think you got some freedoms because we can buy cars, we can buy homes, we can even start businesses, we can even have families, we can even go to grocery stores, we can be integrated, not segregated, we can have our children go to certain schools, we can reach for certain positions and sometimes may get them. And so it gives you the ability to think that you have freedom. And to a certain degree, I would agree with you. But is a third or a fourth of freedom worth standing still for a complete 100% of freedom? Right? And so the same Bible we reference to, that's what Proverbs said in Kings. You have to think about, let me bring this thing back a little bit. In our developmental stages, right, you have to think about children. You have to think about the fact that we are only kids for a short amount of time. Now it's from birth until 18 based off society. In biblical days, it was up until about 13, 15, 16. King Solomon was king at 16 years of age. You have to think about that. King of a kingdom. 16 years of age, who know not what I do, but God help me with discernment of your people, because the mission and the purpose was so high. It wasn't about him. It was about the service of his people and pleasing God. But now we have the ability to go from 16, from birth to 18, but that's 18 years of your life as your development stages and a lifetime to go. God forbid if it's not your will to be departed early, to live on this earth. You have people who in their lineage that reach the years of 80, 90. There's a 30, 40, 50-year time frame you spend as an adult, but trapped in a childlike, undeveloped mind. And so we have to think about our ability to develop our mind to reach what it is that we're trying to reach. Right now, we are in such turmoil. We arguing over Trump is the right person, if Kamala is the right person. Should I get brown eggs, white eggs, 1% milk, 2% milk? Should I get free milk, castrated? We spend so much time on trivial things. And as a people, I would feel that we might have been doing our people a disservice because we're not actually fulfilling what these people have died for. To say simply that your people died for the right to vote, they died for the mission of freedom, not tied to one specific thing. Voting was on the way to freedom. That's what you're not getting. Segregation, desegregating schools and states and cities was on the way to freedom, right? And think about it. We live in a time frame where now we have to qualify or quantify our political agendas, references based on a certain group of people, when in actuality, everybody should just have equal opportunity to succeed and or fail within your own rights. Right? So I shouldn't have to have programs that says we are going to give $1 million to Black women, LGBTQ, everybody other than white, when we should just have equal opportunity across the board, which allows an equal playing field, which allows us to do what? Make our own decisions. But what happened is we don't want to do the work. Talk to me. I understand it. You don't want to do the work. It requires work that we are not prepared for, right? Preparation goes in a long way. I know you say, I thought this was a business part. I'm getting there. I'm getting that. Don't trust me. We're going to break down the business and money principles, right? But first we have to break down the mindset that we have, the mindset that we carry, and the fact that we are really in a more spiritual warfare than we ever have been. We don't have an identity. We can't cleave to a certain demographic of people, an identity, a culture, idealism, right? And so when I think about it, one of my mentors that I look up to, Myron Golden, he talks about the levels of value. I spoke about it before. The lowest level is implementation. This is where a person physically does the work, right? I have to physically come and do any type of manual labor, hit the hammer to the nail. That's physical work, right? Based off the value that you have will determine the output that you receive. This is science. The next level of value is unification. This is a managerial position, right? So this is somebody who have mastered, right? Let's say if we, in reference to somebody working at McDonald's, on the implementation level, I'm the one flipping burgers, right? I'm the one cooking the fries. But when I get to unification level, I'm on a managerial standpoint. So now I get to oversee the person that's flipping the burgers, that's shaking the fries out the fryer, right? To ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to do to the degree that I've done it, to the degree that the manual suggests it should be done. Then we go to communication, because if I can conceive thoughts, and if I'm careful with how I put out my messaging, I have the power through tongue to move, inspire people. And so when you think about a CEO, one of their jobs is to do what? Keep the culture of the people, cultivate and develop leaders. Typically, you're doing that through thought, communications, and implementation based off action. Because like children, they don't take in what you say, but they take in what they see. That's action. The highest level, right, is ideas. Being able to create a thought, create a thing. If we are children of the Most High God, we are, in fact, the same type of creators. But what happens is we like to put our placement on God, religion, church, temple, mosque, and government, and never take the accountability of what we do, who we are, and what we can become. Think about that. What we are, what we do, and who we can become. And so when I think about that in retrospect, what we are, who we are, and what we can become, I think about the ability for you to be able to consciously make decisions and have control over self. Self-control is the highest ability to control the things around you. All right. I'm a big Avatar fan. Y'all might not have known. Avatar: The Last Airbender, the cartoon series. Big on that. I remember watching it as a kid. I still watch it from time to time. In fact, I might put it on today. I still watch it from time to time today, because the messaging that's dropped in there is so powerful beyond the years of just it being a cartoon series. So one of the things that stand out to me, and while I'm talking about control, is toward the end, if you own season 3, book 3, Fire, my guy Aang is so much in distraught with the fact that he has to kill the Fire Lord. He's like, hey, I gotta kill the Fire Lord. Everybody's expecting me to take another man's life. For him to conceptualize that, to take another man's life as a monk, it's just like, hey, we are taught that all life is precious. I can't just take another man's life. So what did he do? He went down a rabbit hole of a thought process. And typically what the thing you focus on appears, right? The thing that you focus on really starts to happen in your life. And so he said, how can I dethrone this man without taking his life? And so if you are serious fans to it, right, you see my man, the lion turtle, come to him and teach him an ancient principle that bends energy. The ability to take another man's bending power away. Think about that. The ability for another man to take your abilities away. That's why when you came on the shores of Jamestown, they stripped the name. They stripped the religion. They stripped who you knew you were to give you an identity of who you to become. And it's still with us today, mentally. But he said, in order to bend another man's power, to take his bending power away, yours had to be unbendable. It had to be pure. If you attempt to take his power away and it was unbendable, it will corrupt you and destroy you. And so we are living in a time frame where we have no self-control. We have no ability to have the power to cultivate our own abilities. This is why we do the things that we do. This is why we think the thoughts that we think. This is why we consume what we consume. This is why we spend so much of our time in distracted territories and never focus on the point of what you need to be focused on. This is why you can go down a rabbit hole of what hip hop throws at you. Not there's nothing wrong with it, because I love a little, you know what I mean, entertainment, but it's a time and place for that. Always, especially if you have a mission and you understand your purpose and you should be on your mission. This is why we can stop at the fact that, oh, we got a little money. Let me buy all the material things. But internally, I'm depleted. I don't even have 500 or 1,000 to my name savings. But I got the Mercedes outside. I got the house. We got the rims. We got the TVs. We got all the things that we think that we can dress ourselves with to be bendable or unbendable in this world. But we have no self-control. Right? And it's used in medicine. If you don't believe me, look at why a good stock you might want to get into. Talk to your investment advisor. Might be Eli Lilly. Why? Because the medical department is going crazy. People shooting themselves with shots to do what? Lose weight, because we don't have the ability for self-discipline when you can just hit the pavement, the treadmill, change the diet. But that's too much like hard working, right? All right. So mental development. Mental development is key in the ability to be able to transform ourselves to get to the place of where we need to get to. The development, the redevelopment. That's why people, when they say, hey, you have lost your mind, let me remind you of who you are. That's what this is about. Let me remind you of the ability that you have to reach the heights of what you want to reach. We look at the same things, the Bible, the principles, the Quran, the scriptures, the Torah, that teaches us all these principles. But when we look in the physical manifestation of what's happening in the world, we're not living the principles we think we believe in. We live in the principles of what's happening internally. We are being mind controlled and don't even realize it. And to some degree, some of you realize it, but don't want to accept the pill of truth. That's what the Matrix was about. The freedom of mind. It wasn't about the fact that what you were doing were right or wrong or indifferent, but it was giving you a different perception on reality to give you a different viewpoint on life. That's how strong the mind is. That's how developed the mind is. And so when we look at business development, the Bible says house and riches are the inheritance of fathers. Think about that. Think about that. When you look at patrons in the Bible, there wasn't an IQ test. There wasn't an ability to say that his or her IQ was this. It was ability to say he who believed and execute on the purpose that they have was the person who prospered in their endeavors on their journey. Think about it. It's interesting that the serpent came to Eve in the way of the tree of knowledge. Person who gives knowledge, truth to power that speaks against what you thought you knew. All this stuff has been around us for years. I'm not saying nothing that's new. I'm just reminding you of what's been around us since the 30s. The thing about the nation is people shun the nation on what they do. But the thing about it is, if you go into the studies, watch the series on the 40 miles where they break down what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did. What happened after Malcolm? He put us all into Malcolm. And see, most people don't want to study the past to understand their present, to reshape their future. We rather go off the narrative that people tell us, and we never question a thing. And in fact, I would submit to you that you should question everything that come across your mind, even your own mental capacity of the thoughts that you develop. You should question them. You should get down to the root of why do I want to be married? Why do I want to take on a wife? Why do I want to have this woman have my children? Why do I want to start this business? You'll never ask yourself this. Why am I doing the day in and the in and out job, the endless, I'm tired, I'm coming home, I don't have no fulfillment? Why? Why did I think the thought that I think? Do what I think align with what I feel? But we're so emotionally led, we let our heart lead us instead of checking the heart with the mental capacity. I believe, I got it written down somewhere. The Bible says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, to who can know it? Which means that we can't afford to live our life off emotional decisions alone. Our emotions have to be fact-checked through thought. Decisions, day, prefix, to cut off, side mean to cut off, day is off or from. So when I make a decision, I cut off the other things possible. We're still keeping options open. I got plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Instead of making a conscious decision and cutting off all things that's not moving us to the decision that we made, we're still making choices, which is different from a decision. So spiritually, we're not there. Mentally, we're not there. For you to understand that you have the ability to think God-like or Christ-like suggests that you have the same powers within yourself. Think about that. God created a people and destroyed a people. Emotionally, that makes him a killer. We speak in facts. This is off biblical facts. Emotionally, that makes him a killer. Then he decided that this one person, Noah, is the utmost noblest person I know who's here, who I can shape, cult, develop to create a new generation of people. When that didn't work, we find ourselves in the New Testament, that of Jesus, who can do what? Die for our sins, for what the church preaches for us to still sin. Jesus died for it. I'm good. Right? And so we don't want to develop ourselves with the mental capacity to do what? create and have control over our own thoughts. So on our way to freedom, what is it? Business. That's what I preach. Right? Because every man in the Bible was a businessman. Think about it. King Solomon, you don't hear these type of scenarios. We always talk about the glory days of King Solomon. He wrote 1,005 songs, 3,000 proverbs. He had good content in those days. He actually did the work. Wisdom that he had in those days in Hebrew is translated to a skill, not intellect. It was not an IQ contest. It was the skill to be a ruler in the kingdom. That's why we're inside the Game of Thrones. Right? And so when he was tired, we never talk about this. When he was tired, God warned him, and you don't pay attention to the warnings. What did he say? I will give you what you ask for and more, riches. But if you turn away from me, this will happen. And what did Solomon do? I believe that he got tired of living in his purpose and decided to not do it anymore. Which is why he turned his heart to more women and turned away from God. And what did God do? He delivered on his promise and removed him. So what does that mean? He was a man of his word. See, you're not getting what you want out of life because you don't even keep your own word. You said you was going to get up earlier. You said you were going to go to the gym. You said you was going to change your diet. You said you was going to develop a new skill. You said you was going to start this business. You said you wanted to make 6 figures. You said you wanted to scale your business to 7 figures plus. You said that. But because you don't keep your word, and where's that? It's okay because why? Christ died for our sins. I'll just repent on Sunday, and Monday I'll still not keep my word. It's not backed by nothing. It's not covenant by nothing. And so when we think about business, I think about the ability for you to execute on something that develops, grow, and serve others in the most high capacity it can serve. As a business owner, you've been taught that business people are not good people. Well, where's this coming from? Well, you've seen another one of my favorite shows is Smallville. Talk about Superman. And so when you think about that, what happens? Lex Luthor was the billionaire evil person. And then what happened with Clark Kent? He was developed, cultivated, raised on a farm, minimal income, poor-like, but was the savior. So you think that in order for you to be a savior, you must be poor. And I'm telling you, it's the exact opposite. Everything gets better when you get better, period, to whatever degree you decide to do. It doesn't have to be the $1 million business. It doesn't have to be the material things. But if you spiritually develop yourself to consciously think about the choices that you make, be a man on your post. Take care of the wife you asked to marry. Take care of the responsibility you took in. That was a decision you made. Take care of the children you helped bring in. Take care of the things that you said you were going to do. It used to be a time when I can look at my brother, shake his hand, and on my word alone, he would believe that I would do everything that I said I was going to do, when I said I was going to do it, and how I said I was going to do it. Now I have to question every man that come across my face. We're not developing men. We're not developing leaders. We're not developing thought leaders. We're developing a people who's been developed, and you're walking like a zombie. Man, this thing, boy. Hey, this thing heavy. This thing heavy. This thing heavy. So we live in a time where most of us are consumers. We consume almost everything. You don't even know your own thoughts. How do I know that? I've lived it. This is the first time I'm probably speaking free of thought to see my own thoughts, clear of social media influence. Why? So I can hear me. And then God within to come out to pour onto you these principles that we should be living and doing. Right? And so we spend more time on products, beauty, travel, vacation, escaping life than we do on the development of our mind. What books are you reading? How big is your library? You are only as good as you develop yourself to be. The greatest investment you can make is within yourself, monetarily, physically, spiritually, emotionally. The greatest power any man has is the ability to have self-control and personally develop into the person that he wants to be. 100%. That's what I believe. That's what I know to be fact. How do you know that? Well, you know, I've been around the block. I'm young, been married a while. And there was a time where I used to blame, man, it's you, who raised you? You living like this, your mom, y'all, I don't understand what this is, which causes what? Friction. Because instead of me trying to understand myself and understand my wife for who she is, I'm trying to cultivate her into what I think is the real deal, of which I have no idea what it is. Because what we're doing, we're indoctrinated off what we grew up to be right. And you should question those things, especially if you a man raised by a woman. And shout out to all the single moms, because I love my mom. But as a man, if you don't have a man's development or thought process or point of view, you are never wholly complete. That's why you will sit there and argue. You will sit there and bicker. You will sit there and fight. You will sit there and blame. You will sit there and won't take accountability. But the moment I discovered accountability and what my actions led and understood as a leader, head of household, truly, that everything that my household produce is a reflection of who I am and what I speak into them, I understood the dynamic of every decision I had to make from that point on. If I don't keep my word, I leave my wife and children to believe they shouldn't believe me and or keep their word. If I don't provide, I leave the ability for somebody else to come in and provide for me. If I don't produce, I become more of the consumer. And not that there's nothing wrong with consumer, but we have $1.3 trillion of buying power. What if 80% of that was built on production, less consumption? The things that you consume becomes better. If I make more money, I can pay better to my people, employees. If I make more money, I can go to better restaurants. I'm serving the people who serve there. If I make more money, I can afford what I feel is the finer things in life. The cleaners, the cars, what you do, you start to do what? Value time, because we don't have time to waste. We are living like we have an unlimited amount of time that we don't really have. And what's happening in our communities? We are left with taking care of our grandmothers, our parents, off decisions they made. And we don't hold them accountable, nor do we hold us accountable to do something different. The writing was on the wall. And we focus on the fact of what the FBI would have you to believe why Malcolm died. What was his conflict with the nation? But you never study the man and understand exactly what was going on. One of the things that you got to bear witness to is Malcolm didn't own nothing. Everything he had was property thereof, the nation. In a world where he was talking about what? Self-production, resurrection. So there was a fight. If I'm no longer a part of the nation, I no longer have access to the things that the nation has. But here's my thing on the 40 miles in a mule. When you look at the series, the thing about it is Elijah Muhammad was strategic in what he built. A man that only went to a certain grade level of school. Think about that. He wasn't no intellectual Einstein scholar. But yet you looking for credentials, degrees of people to be qualified in the things that they say they qualified in, for you to judge them based off what society says is right or wrong. When we grew up in a time frame where there was no such thing as licensing and things of that nature, why do we even have that? To keep people out of it. Keep who? Specifically black people. But it is what it is. We got licensing, we got degrees, we got to go through credentials, we got to get professionalized in today's society. But that doesn't mean that we become indoctrinated with what they give us license to not be able to freely think. If I'm a doctor, let me understand westernized medicine, Eastern medicine, spiritual medicine to cause prevention instead of putting a Band-Aid over what we think is healing. So we look for the government to say, let's decrease the price of insulin, instead of looking to us and say, let me get my dietary needs in order. Because black people have a 60% of chance to become diabetic. And when you become diabetics, that means you're consuming more sugars than you should be. When you can simply say, I just won't eat the cake this weekend. Which is why I respect the attributes of a principle called what? Fasting. Because when you deny the body and the flesh, it gives you ultimate control. For you to have self-control, you have to master your body physically, mentally, spiritually, in totality, to not let anything or any man or woman control the outcome in which you decide to produce. That's ultimate freedom. So if I sell my time for money, I have to understand I'm not free. But if it's my position to not be a producer as far as starting a business, but my position to help a business owner, why don't I spend the time to become more valuable so I can help the business owner think to make more profits, which will then increase what? My profit margin, instead of being low level and being scared because AI is coming in. Instead of staying low level and just bagging groceries where I can figure out a way to be cost effective. Because when you think about it, that's what businesses is about. Businesses is about profit. We start a business to produce profit. CEOs are looking for cost effective ways to have more profit than not, right? And if you don't believe everything is about money, I submit to you. You living in a fantasy, my guy, my girl. So much, in fact, the Catholic Church understood the principle so early on that they did what? They hired financial professionals, created banks in the Vatican. Why? Because they needed the economic supply to do what? Create a massive control of the people, of the belief, to be Catholic. That's why you have their influence throughout the world. That's why people pay attention to what the Pope says. That's why they have influence, because they took the time to build their system financially that equally married with their beliefs of what they communicated out to the people. But we don't get that memo. Black people in America, we don't get that. We start churches with nothing. Produce nothing, and you keep people blind, deaf, and dumb on all fronts. I don't care what religion you are in. If you're not in a place, a church, a community around people who uplift you to be your highest form of self, that environment is too tough for you to stay in. You need to remove yourself. No matter what it is, no matter what society, what social club, no matter what fraternity, sorority, church, mosque, temple you are in, you need to remove yourself. If I'm a pastor, it would be in my best interest to empower the people to have the ability and the skill set to then make more money, because when you give, that's a fact. When you give, you always get. When you give the people what they need or want the most, they give you what you need and want the most. You don't think we would have a prosperous church if the median income of our church was at $100,000 a year? Median income. You don't think so? You don't think that if a pastor helped me make more money, that will make me give more in tithing? That will make me bear the sacrifice lighter? These people who make money don't have geniuses IQ. Warren Buffett tell you that. He's one of the most richest man on the planet. He said, like, I'm not smarter than any one person. I just did a thing so well, develop it, and did it longer than the average person will do anything. Your problem is you flip-flop. 1 minute you a stock man. Next minute you a businessman. Next minute you a trash man. Next minute you a car washer. Next minute you working as a CNA. The next minute you don't know if you want to go get your degree to be nursing. Next minute, now, oops, we done had children. Now I'm a baby father. Now I'm a baby mother. All the dynamics. And we never live in life intentionally to get down to the things that we're supposed to get. So on the platform, we talk about business. We talk about politics. One of the questions the producers asked me is, well, what's the resolve? I hear you. Well, what's the solution? The solution is self-control by any means necessary. Those are Malcolm words. So if it's in you to be a producer and start a business, start the business and do business. If it's in you to not be a business owner but have a specific skill, develop, cultivate, nurture the skill over years. So when you come out into the marketplace, it seems like less of an effort, but people are missing the years it took you to get there. We idolize people like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. But we don't want to do what they did to get to where they are. There's 1,000 football players. Most of them broke now. Basketball players. But what separates the good from the great? Their ability to have linear focus. Focus is so powerful, so much in fact that if we were to focus millions of beams of light into one area, it could penetrate that area because the concentration and focus is so deep. But what we're allowing to happen is distractions. We're getting distracted by the small things. And what's a distraction? Anything that keeps you from you living out your purpose and your ability to provide and produce and serve in this world. We have to become selfish creatures. By nature. It sounds bad, but really it's not. It's the highest form of self-consciousness. I used to bash my wife about it. I'm like, you a little selfish. I definitely did. But in truth, when I started to take accountability, what happened was I realized that really that was a trait that I admired because I didn't yet have the ability to be selfish. Because when you are selfish, what happens is you look out for you first before you look out for others. You don't think that's possible? Well, think about it. God created himself and developed himself and had thought of mind before he put things in fruition that he communicated, but he developed himself before he started to even create another man. That's selfish behavior. That's selfish behavior that leads to a greater success. So business, we don't have the principles. We don't have the principles guided for business. We don't have the understanding for business. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, before I get into the business of what he said this. He said that there was 24 scientists, 12 major, 12 minor. This you can find in the book, The Message to the Black Man. He said they will go out and disperse themselves amongst the people and write history 25 to 35,000 years in advance. So we are living in the history that they prescribe based off the behaviors of people. And you don't even want to understand the family you came from to understand that you're going to deal with them same type of people in the world. I still understand it. If you have an abuser, a manipulator, false character, good character, you have it, I guarantee you, right within your own family. But you're not studying what's in front of you to be able to make better decisions for today that will shape your future tomorrow. The Bible says that house and riches are the inheritance of fathers. If a father is not passing down house and riches, you are not living to your fullest self, period. So he said these scientists wrote history in advance. This was before slavery. You are come from a people who were the original man of the man, who cultivated the man of which we are now fearing. Another thing he said was whether or not you believe it or not, but let's go down the thought philosophy of it. He said that the white man is the devil, created by Yaqub, the father of them, which he cultivated through the science of understanding genes out of black people. Right? So let's follow me here. If you were to believe that the white man was created out of black people, that would suggest the devil-like nature that's in them is also in you. It's just personified in them. Talk to me. Talk to me. And this ain't me trying to make you a Christian or Muslim or nothing, but this is taking you down the rabbit hole, because what happens today is you have to take in all of the information. What the Christians say, what the Bible say, what the mosque say, what the Quran say, what the Jews say, what the Torah say, what the ancient religions say, that of Buddhism, Confucianism, Hinduism, to find out the similarities in the foundations of the principles to conceive a thought. You can't talk this talk and only can see it one way. So we must study ourselves to be proven. Think about that. Men don't study today. Back when the nation was in its, not that it's not in its prime, but when the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan was rebuilding the nation, he said he spent his days studying the Bible, the Word, the Quran, the scriptures, dissecting things, problems, the world, what's happening in America. And when he wasn't studying, he was speaking. When he wasn't speaking, he was studying, in spite of the fact that he had a family. What are you tuning yourself into today that allows you to study so intentionally that when you're not speaking or talking to clients or trying to get business, you are studying that which you say you are an expert in, and doing the work that makes you seen as that expert? So as above is so as below. What's on the bottom is at the top. What's in our physical manifestation is in our spiritual manifestation. What we think of the bottom, we conceive, or what we think at the top, we conceive in the bottom. It all matters. But you don't want to study the ancient and the secret principles, the esoterics, the astrology, the religions, what the doctrine is to make you understand who you are as a people. I'm still talking business. Talk to me. That's the time we living in. So the question is the time and what must be done. That's a question you have to go inside yourself to ask, to come up with a perceived thought, conscious of mind, right? We have to study ourselves to be proven. Study more. Read. That's what that means. Develop a vocabulary through reading that takes you down the thought to create your own thoughts, that lets you live in a higher consciousness of your mind. In the brain is divided between the conscious and the subconscious. Subconsciously, we have things that we have been guided in, lived through, developed through, that they have walked us through that we never questioned. The conscious protects the unconscious mind, because in the conscious mind, you are supposed to think through what you are thinking through subconsciously. But we live as zombies. We live as people. We live as just living unintentionally, which is why. And why is that important? Because you're producing babies you can't take care of. You're not being selfish enough to think that, am I the right person to bring in another life in this world with the condition that I have now, to produce a better person, to be better than me, to take on the responsibility, in fact, to give to somebody of which I owe and responsible for them to be better. How can you say that, Tariq? I have children, 4. And although I love them with all of my heart, I do question from time to time, was it the right time to have these said children? You can argue the fact that these children, my wife and my family, has helped me become faster the person that I needed to become. But think about if you were to develop early in that conscious and subconscious mind, and then that in fact produce a child who is a godlike child, that when they come out the womb, they walk in and run into their destiny and purpose fulfilled, in a which of a purpose that you have been fulfilled in. But many times we're having kids, we're having people, and you don't even know your own purpose, so you're misguiding the children, which is leading to tomorrow's leaders who are misguided, who don't have foundational principles to stand on, who will shake and quiver and buckle at any nick, money, dollar, anything that comes toward their face, and can't make a conscious decision business-wise. Life is business. This is business. See, the thing about nature is they understand the principles in which they were here to do. They don't do nothing more except for the fact that what they are born to do. The eagle hang with eagles. It do what eagles do. It don't do what ducks do, period. They're not even curious. The lion hangs with lion, producer pride. They don't do what hyenas do. They're not even curious. But one of the things about animals is when things like snakes, they shed a fur or a skin to be renewed, and we haven't shed our skin, our fur, to be renewed into the person that we are meant to be. In a world where things are coming at you so subconsciously, you're not even thinking about the things that you're taking in, and we have to be more present to live a conscious life than most. High-level conversations is the key. So I'm not going to speak to you as if you were a child, ignorant. I'm going to speak to you as if you are a God-like creature who can walk, talk, breathe, make decisions, live, create the things that he or she wants to create, to live the life that you want to live, to be fruitful in the things that you want to be fruitful. That's why multiplication works, because when you do the math and you do the work, right, and it multiplies, period. If I take one step, the business have created a third step. Automatically. And so you live with principles. I'm going to give you the laws of gold before I leave up out of here. 5 laws of gold. 5 laws of money. Gold cometh gladly in increasingly quantity to any man who put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Intentionally, that means I must put 10% of my money away for future endeavors. We're crying about no access to capital, but we're not diligent in the capital that we currently have. Think about that. Now, law number 2, gold laboreth diligently for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. If you give your money an assignment and a job, it will do its job. When you spend money haphazardly, you will lose money the same way. So if I not only save 10%, but I also put 5% that's employed, right? Meaning that it's out there producing, it's impregnating itself. I bought stocks, which produced me more stock and money. I bought a firm, a business, which produced me more business. I bought into myself, which helps me develop myself to be more of a producer of said gold. The 3rd law, gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invested under the advice at men wise in its handling. What does that mean? Solomon said you need a wise counsel around you. Be not led astray by fools. And make no mistake, there are plenty of fools out there. How do you know? They will still talk the talk and try to live up to the talk by walking, but you will see that they will not bear the fruit that they say they bear. Sometimes that requires you to make an investment that turns out to be bad. Sometimes that require you to pay into a consulting program, a coaching program, a mentoring program, and then not do the things that they said that they were going to do. That doesn't deter you, but what it helps you do is put yourself around wise counsel of men and or women who have produced the things that you're looking to produce and cultivated the things that you're looking to cultivate. There was a mentor who told me, based off what we were trying to do, we have to live and experience life of the people that we're trying to fulfill. Quality matters. So think about that. The 4th law is gold slippeth away from the man who invested in business or purpose with which he is not familiar or which are not approved at all. So what does that mean? Don't invest in things you don't know nothing about. Right now you're investing into my content, but I encourage you to fact check me. Think through it. I don't want to just give you things for me to dump on you. No, think through it. Invest in things that you know. If you don't know nothing about Eli Lilly, don't invest in the stock. If you don't know anything about Apple, don't invest in the stock. Who else said that? Warren Buffett. I only invest in businesses that I can what? Understand. So if you haven't done the work to understand it, don't invest into it. Physically or spiritually. That's the thing about these laws. It's just not about this is about the money, materialistic manifestation of it, but this is an act, a result of how you think mentally and spiritually inside your mind. The last one is gold fleeth a man, or the man, who would force it to impossible earnings, or who follow the alluring advice of tricksters, schemers, or who trusted to his own inexperience and romantic desires in investments. Oh my God. Let me start with the last of the first. Romantic desires in investments. Let not your heart lead you to any decision. Let your mind do that and align your heart with your mental to make a conscious decision versus making emotional decisions. Let's not invest in the things we feel might be good, monetary, physically, or spiritually. Today, I might not feel like working out, but mentally, I need to be a better person, a man, a human being, to produce, to go work. So am I going to do something based on how I feel, or should I do something by developing the disciplined muscle to do it without thinking, subconsciously? Right? Let's not get into the luring advice of tricksters and schemers. The writing is on the wall. You felt that they wasn't really living up to what they thought they would. But you tricked yourself into believing that the investment will pan out. And that's what happened. So although the tricksters and the schemers and the gurus and the mentors and the financial literacy people have a responsibility to play in this, but ultimately you have the greatest responsibility because it's your money you decide to let go. It's your decisions you decide to do. Anything I think about and conceive or feel like doing, I sit on it. You think it's been a while. I thought about doing this series on my own, but I thought on the thought, is this what I really want to do? Can I align my feelings with my mental and get it out there? So don't follow the tricksters and the schemers. Yes, they have a place, but you have the greatest responsibility because you give up what that you mean the most to the people that says that they can give you that you mean the most. That's what money is. It's a note. It's a certificate of deposit of me exchanging of values. I'm going to give you what I have to receive what I want to receive, which that is valuable to me, no matter what it is. Whether I'm buying eggs, meat, cheese, church, mosque, temple, mentors, coaches, consultants, it doesn't change. So take heed to these laws and produce a business that will reap which you sow. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but you can cultivate it. You can develop it, and it's very much so strong. That seed that you plant, if you grow it, it will grow into whatever it is that you planted. So think about it. If you don't like the garden that you're in, if you don't like the life that you're living, if you don't like the outcomes that you have had in life, check the input, check the seed, and redevelop that into the thing that you want it to be. Listen, I hope that this series is our first series. I'm kind of getting my feet wet here. I'm, kind of enjoying myself, really. I'm a cut loose while I'm ahead, right? We're going to develop these messages. We're going to make sure we have applicable preparation to unleash the conscious mind of higher conversation, higher development, because that's what this is all about. The higher we think, the more spiritual we are, in tune, the more our reality will be is a outcome of what we put inside of us, right? And so if you like this series, man, let me know. Let me know. Leave some feedback. Let me know if you want more of this series, right? Should we go a little bit deeper, right? There's a lot of stuff I want to kind of, pull at you. We got to take this episode by episode to walk this thing, right? But leave comments. Let me know what you think. Are you in a state of confusion where you just really don't know and trying to figure out what's your next move? Of course, my thing is business, but that's my thing. Your thing could be, you could be number 2. You could be number 3 in charge. You could be number 4. But are you living to your fullest potential in that role is what you have to ask yourself. Are you making decisions properly and not improperly? Are you being led astray or are you leading the decisions? And that's what free thinking, freedom, conscious of thought is mostly about. And so like, share, subscribe, minding your biz, and we'll continue these series of high-level conversations of Tariq Uninterrupted. And I'll see you next time. Peace.